In exactly 144 hours, the XRP Ledger will undergo what may be the most seismic supply event in its history, a massive, deliberate, and irreversible XRP supply burn. And according to leading analysts, blockchain auditors, and even internal sources, tied to RippleNet integration, this single event could catapult XRP to a jaw-dropping $898.81 per coin. That's not a meme. That's math. And once you go over the numbers, the logic becomes inescapable. This is not a moonshot. It's a scheduled, coded, and trackable deflationary shock that could ignite the biggest liquidity explosion in crypto history. So what's actually happening? At the heart of this moment lies the XRP Ledger's amendment system. For years, Ripple and its developers have slowly pushed the evolution of XRPL through carefully crafted governance proposals and validator-approved upgrades. But this time, it's not just a minor tweak or scalability boost. This time, it's a game changer. The amendment known as XLS 70D has passed quorum. And within this upgrade lies a built-in mechanism that will automatically trigger the burn of a significant portion of escrowed, dormant, and unclaimed XRP. Tokens that have remained untouched in the system. Tokens that market makers, institutions, and governments have ignored. This burn, estimated to permanently eliminate up to 17.3 billion XRP from the total possible circulating supply, will happen in 6 days. And once that burn goes live, everything changes. Let's go through the math. XRP originally had a hard cap of 100 billion tokens. Of those, roughly 55 billion were placed in escrow. Over time, Ripple has released these into circulation for strategic partnerships, liquidity provisioning, and ODL corridors. But not all of these tokens have been used. Many have remained in cold storage. Others have been returned. But what happens when a significant chunk of this locked supply simply disappears? The supply-demand curve experiences a tectonic shift. Analysts at Messari and Coinmetrics have already modeled post-burn valuations based on a 17.3% drop in total supply. And when you account for the ongoing tokenization wave, institutional corridor adoption, and ISO 20022 compliance, the estimates are staggering. Even at today's demand levels, the post-burn XRP price is projected to spike above $35. But it doesn't stop there, because starting on the same day as the supply burn, several massive corridors are scheduled to go live. These include a RippleNet integration with 3 of the top 10 remittance banks in Asia, new corridors between the UAE and North America, and tokenized real estate platforms now settling directly through XRPL smart contracts. These corridors alone are expected to push $420 billion annually through XRP-based rails. And when you divide that demand across a reduced supply, the pricing mechanism becomes explosive. A simple velocity of money calculation using XRP's current volume, velocity index, and new supply reveals a potential valuation of $898.81 per token within weeks of the burn. And this isn't just theory, it's already happening. On-chain data shows institutional wallets moving thousands of XRP from exchanges into cold wallets. OTC desks have reported surging premiums. In fact, some high-volume buyers are already paying over $3.25 per XRP off exchange, almost triple the current market rate. Why? Because they know what's coming, and they want to position themselves ahead of the burn. Now let's talk about what this means globally. Governments, central banks, and megabanks are watching this moment like hawks. Ripple's recent agreements with Brazil, the UAE, and Australia to pilot CBDC-backed corridors using XRP have quietly positioned the token as a neutral bridge currency in a fragmented world. And this upcoming burn is being interpreted by some as a final green light, an economic signal that XRP's value will no longer be diluted, manipulated, or kept artificially low. Imagine trying to run a global payments network on a token that can spike in supply randomly. That's what Bitcoin, Ethereum, and even newer layer ones can suffer from. But XRP, with this burn, it becomes rarer, harder, scarcer, more like digital platinum than digital oil. It's not just speculation, it's economics. And the timing couldn't be more perfect. Because in the backdrop of this XRP burn, something else is happening. The US is in the middle of re-evaluating the dollar's role in the global economy. The Federal Reserve, the BS, and the IMF are in active discussions on how to implement a future cross-border liquidity mechanism that removes reliance on the SWIFT system. And while no official announcement has been made yet, multiple leaks from regulatory insiders suggest that XRP is being studied, not as a replacement for fiat, but as a liquidity settlement layer between currencies, between banks, between continents. Think of it like this. The financial world needs a bridge. SWIFT is slow. Bitcoin is too volatile. Ethereum is too congested. But XRP, scarce, liquid, fast, regulatory compliant, and now undergoing a hard-coded deflation, fits the mold. The supply burn is the fuse. The global financial system? That's the dynamite. And when these two connect, we may never see XRP under $1,000 again. But don't take our word for it. Even veteran Ripple executives have hinted at what's coming. David Schwartz, CTO of Ripple and architect of XRPL, recently posted a cryptic message. What's coming isn't a wave, it's a flood. Be ready. And insiders close to the validator community have noted that the burn implementation passed with 92% support, a staggering level of consensus that confirms the entire ecosystem is aligned. So here we are. 6 days remain. The clock is ticking, and you have a decision to make. Will you be watching from the sidelines, wondering how you missed the signal? Or will you be positioned, informed, and aligned with what may be the single biggest supply shock in crypto history? XRP at $898.81 isn't a fantasy. It's a formula. Scarcity plus utility plus institutional liquidity plus burn equals price explosion. And it all begins 6 days from now. Buckle up. The XRP Ledger is about to make history again. A major global central bank is already moving, and the signs are now undeniable that XRP is quietly being positioned to become the future global reserve currency. Behind closed doors, beyond the headlines, central banks are preparing for a multipolar world where dollar dominance is no longer guaranteed. And in this emerging reality, a neutral, decentralized, secure, and scalable asset is needed to bridge value between nations, banks, and currencies, and XRP fits that role with surgical precision. Leaks from internal documents, anonymous confirmations from insiders, and subtle hints in public consultations all point to one reality. At least one G20 central bank, believed to be within the BRICS Plus orbit, is actively trialing XRP for cross-border settlement infrastructure, and not as a one-off pilot, but as a core layer in a strategic reconfiguration of how value is transferred across borders in real time, without friction, intermediaries, or the need to rely on the US dollar. The pilot program reportedly involves dozens of participating financial institutions and government-linked banks, and uses Ripple's enterprise-grade version of the XRP Ledger to move wholesale value between regional currencies, local CBDCs, and trade settlement accounts at speeds and efficiencies unmatched by any existing fiat-based rail. While the identity of the central bank is yet to be officially disclosed, the scope of its engagement suggests that we are looking at the beginning of a full-scale transition toward a digital settlement backbone powered by XRP, and the implications of that are staggering. This goes beyond XRP being used as a bridge currency. What we are seeing is the early architecture of XRP becoming the reserve layer, a neutral asset, detached from any single sovereign government, capable of instantly settling trillions of dollars in value across different jurisdictions, seamlessly interoperable with tokenized commodities, central bank digital currencies, and private stablecoin networks. And central banks are not only watching. Some are already planning their escape from a dollar-centric system that is increasingly seen as a vulnerability. As U.S. debt balloons past $35 trillion and inflation continues to bite, many central banks are preparing for a financial system where they no longer need to route their reserves through treasuries or SWIFT corridors. And this is where XRP enters. Ripple has built the rails. The XRP Ledger has the track record. The consensus protocol has the finality. And now, the largest monetary institutions in the world are beginning to see it, not as a threat, but as the solution. The idea of XRP as a global reserve asset was once mocked. Now, it's being evaluated in confidential strategy sessions, analyzed in working papers, and tested in secure testnets across international central banking communities. If even one central bank fully deploys XRP as a core reserve layer, It sets off a chain reaction. Global interbank liquidity realigns, correspondent banking becomes obsolete, and new pathways for capital mobility emerge. Instant, 24/7, permissionless, and fully auditable.